The guy who invented System had his funeral today. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. I have been haunted by a skinwalker for over 1.5 years. The truth is that once you expose yourself to the paranormal world, you are scarred. Having once entered this world, there is no going back. A few days after my encounter with the skinwalker, it seemed like the creature had left me alone. However, I continued seeing the black figure lurking in the shadows in the forest across my house. Every time I looked out of the window into the forest, I could see a tall black figure just standing there, watching me. It never did anything but observe, so I thought that was the worst that could happen. I swore on my life I would never step foot in the forest where I first saw it, and I managed to keep my promise, until one day. February is a cold and rainy month in Transylvania. It seems like the sun hides for ages, leaving my small town cloaked under dark clouds and constant mist. It was a regular Thursday afternoon. I had left school and spent the afternoon at my friend's house, eating cookies, drinking tea and doing homework. Normal 4 p.m. activities. Until the landline rang. It was a call from my grandma. She knew I was at my friend's house and she regularly used the landline, so it was no surprise she called it rather than my cell phone. Her sweet voice, calm and soothing as always, could be heard from the other side. "How are you doing, sweetheart? I was just calling to let you know that I am going on a walk to the wooden fountain. I will be home in a few hours, so I will see you for dinner. Don't freak out if I'm not answering the phone." The wooden fountain is the fancy name given to a wooden sink crafted at the end of a forest spring so hikers can drink water from it. It is located on a meadow surrounded by small trees, which merge and form the beginning of the woods. The fountain is beautiful in the spring and has a few wooden tables and benches. The meadow is accessible through a tourist path that goes right to it. It is not surprising for elder ladies to take the easy hiking trail and spend a few hours chilling by the spring, having a picnic or just enjoying the nice weather. The problem was that it was winter and my grandmother is not the type of lady that would go to a forest walk. On many occasions, she had advised me to never go to the woods, especially alone. So why was she going there in the first place? What was she planning on doing there? It was cold and gloomy outside. The hiking trail did not go directly into the deep forest, but it was close enough to be able to see into it. "Grandma, I thought we agreed on avoiding the forest at all costs. And you are telling me that you are just going in there for a walk?" I was shocked. I could not understand the meaning of this. Before I could finish my words, the line cut. She hangs up on me. Strange, I thought. I grew up with my grandma. She raised me, took care of me like a mother and protected me like a father. She would never hang up on me unless it was something important. What could be so important to make her run into the forest? I tried to relax, continue my afternoon. At this point, I was pretty sure my friend thought I was going crazy. But I just couldn't relax. I felt uneasy. The weather outside was dark and the sun was beginning to set. Something didn't make sense. I could not take it any longer. I got up and headed straight for the hiking trail. It would be a lie if I said that the skinwalker encounter crossed my mind at that moment. It didn't just cross it. It was planted deep into my memory. Every look at the woods reminded me of it for 1.5 years. It never left my mind. However, this wasn't about me anymore. It was about the well-being of a loved one. I feel like that changes the game. We would do anything to protect the ones we care about. I remained optimistic. The path wasn't straight in the woods, more like next to them. I had seen the creature in the woods, so perhaps I had zero chance of seeing it at all. That was all I needed. I took the path leading to the wooden fountain. During the warm months, it is crowded with people, families with little children going for a walk on a Sunday afternoon, elders meeting friends, teenagers drinking booze and smoking cigarettes, birds chirping and crickets filling the atmosphere. That afternoon it was empty. No animal sounds, no people, no noise. Like nature had stopped. I made my way to the fountain, hoping I would see my grandmother there and find out why she had to go there in the first place. The tourist path was not long at all. Maybe 25 minutes slow walking. I walked fast, trying to avoid looking into the woods on my right. It took me about 10 minutes and I made it to the meadow. Needless to say, the wooden benches were empty. There was no one. But how was that possible? If my grandma had come here, I would have met her somewhere along the path or at the fountain. She was nowhere to be found. I was confused and trembling. Then I heard it, my grandmother's voice behind me. "Oh darling, is that you?" Thank God, I thought. She was here. But when I turned around to look at her, there was no one. "I'm glad you came, dear." This time the voice came from all around me. It wasn't behind me, it wasn't in front of me. It was everywhere. I knew I should not jump to conclusions and assume it had anything to do with the Skinwalker, since I was not seeing the black figure. Until... Hello. Hello. The words were said with my voice, the same exact way as my first encounter with the Dark Witch. That's when it hit me. It was never my grandmother who called me. This creature, whatever it was, had successfully lured me into the forest. I remembered my grandma's words from the night of the first encounter: don't respond. Responding to its words forms a connection. A connection I once shared with it. I was not going to let it happen again. I was not about standing there and take it. The sun was already setting and the air was cold, filled with moist. I started running as fast as I could down the tourist path, going back to the city. "Sweetheart, where are you going?" My grandmother's voice. It echoed all around me as I was sprinting down the track. "Don't you want to stay with me here? We can have a picnic." It was almost taunting, mocking. I had never been more terrified in my life. No matter how fast I ran and how far away from the meadow I got, the voice was following me. Always sounding like it was just next to me. Hello. Hello. My voice from a year and a half ago. I could no longer think straight. All I wanted was for it to be over. I was crying and running. The sky was dark. The night was closer and closer. The wind made awful sounds as it swept through the woods, now left of me. Everything was a big mess: the sky, the woods, the ground, the path. I was running and running. Then I heard it. This time it was neither my grandma's voice nor my voice. It was a sinister, demonic voice. "Stop. You can't run forever." I was blinking my eyes out, I was dizzy and could hardly see, but I continued running. "Would you not want to stay with me, E?" This time it sounded playful, like a little girl saying it. No matter how much I ran, I was not getting to the city. I felt like I was on a treadmill. That's when I tripped. Everything went silent again. No voices, no wind. I had no power to get up and continue. I just sat there on the ground in silence. That's it, I thought. This will drive me insane. Then I saw it. The tall dark humanoid figure standing a few feet away from me on my left, where the woods were. Its animalistic eyes stared into mine, a sinister smile on its lips. I would have collapsed right there and then. But I was not about to die there. It reached out with its long arms like tree branches, and just before it touched my arm, I managed to get up and start running. "Where are you going?" The mad, devilish voice continued echoing. This time it was further away. I ran and ran, my legs bruised and cut from the fall. I could not look back. "You cannot run, my dear," it was using my grandmother's voice again. This time it was far from me. This only encouraged me to keep going. After a little while, I saw the end of the hiking trail and the town road with cars driving around. I looked only once behind me. There was no one. How I got home I cannot say. All I remember is that as soon as I entered the house I saw my grandma, worried to death because of my disappearance. It took a while to clear everything up. To sum it up, she never called me or left our house. Of course, she didn't. I could not stop crying for hours. After a bath and a warm dinner, I was in bed. There were no voices like after my first encounter. Maybe due to the fact that this time I did not talk to the creature like I did the first time. Whether I made the biggest mistake of my life or it was just curiosity getting the best of me, I don't know. I looked out of the window into the forest. There it was. Standing in the shadows, lurking as always. Just this time, it was waving at me.